Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on Signs and Graphics, Essential Marketing Tools for Your Business. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is David Stowe. More on Dave in just a minute, but first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA, and locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we offer three primary value-added services. We have over 130 volunteers specializing in a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer free one-on-one counseling, either by face-to-face or in these times video, by telephone, or you can also do it by email. And you can access that by clicking on the yellow bit.ly link that's on the screen, or you can go to our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. We also offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars, over about 150 throughout the year. And lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be this Friday, February 26th at noon, and the topic is Maintain Leadership Presence, Own the Room, with Steve Gardner presenting. And you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And if you're on our website, you'll find there a large number of archived webinars that you can review at your leisure on an on-demand basis. Just some logistics about today's event. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. However, if you have a question, you can submit it anytime using the chat window, and the chat window is available by hovering on the bottom of your screen, and you can just type that in at any time, and then David will take questions at the end of his prepared remarks. We will end sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded and will be available again through our website, fairfieldcounty.score, within the next 48 hours or so. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, David Stowe. Dave is Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for AlphaGraphics in Stamford, Connecticut. David has over 2 decades of experience developing and implementing print, direct mail, and graphics projects to help clients promote and grow their businesses. Prior to joining AlphaGraphics, David ran the everyday operations of D&M Press for over 10 years. David holds a law degree from Hofstra University, serves on numerous nonprofit boards, and is a nonprofit founder himself. Dave, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for the kind words. And thank you for SCORE for hosting this. And thank you for everyone for joining us today. I hope you find this informational session on signs and graphics helpful. And as Bob said at the end, please feel free to ask any questions. So signs and graphics are a crucial tool to success of your business. In any trade, there's always a tool that's central to success. A welder has a blowtorch, a plumber has a wrench, and in the world of marketing, that tool is signage. The importance of that tool centers on its ability to get the job done. Just like a plumber's wrench is vital for loosening and tightening pipes, a good piece of signage is superbly effective at communicating your brand and its messaging to potential customers or whomever your target audience is. Without it, you wouldn't be able to get the job done properly. As a business owner, it's important for you to understand that signage is an instrumental tool for success, including how to use it for its function and for its effectiveness. Now, 50% of people in a survey said that poor signage deters them from entering a business, while in a recent survey, 60% of businesses say that new signage has resulted in a market increase in sales. So you definitely want to use signage to help your business connect and succeed. What we're going to go through now is some core usage for signs. Some of those include branding, marketing, informational, and wayfinding. So basically, signage is a core tool to brand your business or organization. There are numerous different tools available to your brand when it comes to building and engaging an audience, but there's only one tool that's critical above all others, and that's custom signage. The power of signage to attract, engage, and convey messaging to onlookers makes it a staple at the core of your branding efforts. And no matter what the application or the message at the heart of your custom signage, it's instrumental in bringing awareness as soon as it is seen. All of your marketing materials should be consistent when it comes to your logo, colors, taglines, and other branding elements that you use. And this consistency and repetition helps build your brand and builds memory into your audience. Buying or taking action decisions are commonly made on the 8th to 12th touch or contact when it comes to marketing. While you can familiarize when you can familiarize people with your branding, the more they see it, the more they recognize it, and the more comfortable they become with it. Signage allows you to build those touches without having to actively pursue your audience. Signage is perhaps the most visible tool that you have to build your brand. And regardless of whether it's your front entrance illuminated sign, whether it's your lobby logo, whether it's wayfinding in your office, event signs, or any other kinds of signs or graphics, get your branding onto them to continuously build your brand identity. You want people to be able to eventually see your branding and immediately identify it with your business. A welder wouldn't be able to weld without a blowtorch, and a plumber wouldn't even consider walking into a job without a wrench. So don't build your brand without taking the time to use and incorporate signage. Now, if you look at the slide here, you can see the CX Loyalty. This was a national rebrand for a company that had 6 different locations across the country, and they wanted to build a uniform and consistent look. So the illuminated sign that they had at every location built in that brand identity. They also wanted to build in a texture and a feel into their brand. And at most of the locations, they also incorporated a subway tile in the background. And that, as people enter and continue to go to their locations, will continue to build their brand and build recognition of their brand. So as we have already stated, signs and graphics are an essential marketing tool. Signs are key to marketing for any business, and signs speak to people about your business. And based on numerous surveys, they have a whole lot to say. So in a recent survey, 42% of women and 31% of men said they will choose to enter a business that they have not visited before, simply based on that sign that's outside the business. 79% of Americans remember a business based on its sign. 68% of Americans agree that signage reflects on the quality of a business and its products. So you definitely don't want to skimp and have some handwritten sign in your window, because that reflects poorly on the business. 70% of American consumers told someone about a business after reacting to its signage. And 68% of consumers made a purchase because the sign caught their interest. So it's clear that the value of quality on-site signage is a crucial tool in your marketing efforts. And in fact, 24 all full page ads would need to be equal to what the value of one pole sign outside a business would bring. So all of this means that any business needs to recognize the importance of signage in marketing and for their business. To not have good signage that clearly speaks to people with a clean and clear design is to simply give up on perhaps your best and most consistent marketing tool. Unlike other forms of marketing, you don't need to target a specific audience or to create or obtain a contact list. Find people you can speak, or find the people that you need to speak to. Signs are there all the time, working for you 24/7 for everyone to see and bring attention and create awareness about your business. So one of the other core uses of signage is informational. You could be conveying message that are service-oriented, product-oriented, simply important to know things, or public service messaging. Signs are not just for branding and marketing. So signs can provide information to customers, vendors, or employees upon entering your business. Signs can provide product-oriented information when used as point of purchase tools, illuminating features, pricing, and product uses, and even more. There is a whole host of things that would be important to know, which signs can help with, such as location of the bathroom, an elevator, that the property is watched by security, and many other things. Signs are also one of the best ways to communicate important public service messaging. We all should be very familiar with this these days, with the messages such as hand washing, mask wearing, social distancing, and other important public health considerations. Businesses should also not forget that even when using signs for informational purposes like this, it's also a great way to market themselves and build their brand by including logos and other branding essentials. And then one other core use for signage is wayfinding. It helps assist in traffic flow, efficiency, location identification, and in building your brand. Wayfinding is a key function that signs provide, and many times before a customer even gets out of their car or enters your business. Clear and concise wayfinding signage outside of a business is important. The last thing you want is an irritated customer coming into your business because they could not easily find the entrance or easily park nearby. Wayfinding signs are important both inside and outside of your business. Showing someone how to clearly find your business once they enter a building, or letting someone know the way to the elevator or stairway may seem obvious and simple, but don't forget to do it. And this is, once again, another way to add branding into your signage. If you can associate your brand with making someone's trip to your business easier, that leaves a positive impression and a positive impact on your brand. Now, when it comes to putting signage together, there's a lot of variables to consider, and all of them matter. That includes messaging, the placement of that sign, the colors that are used, the imagery, the shapes, the materials, and of course, it's all tied together with your budget. With an understanding of all the variables that go into signage and signage presentation, as well as a focus on messaging and application, creating signage that stands out is simple. It's a step-by-step process that's made easy by taking stock of your signage needs and then closely following a recipe for creation around the objective. So you want to define your message, you want to define where you're going to put the signs, define the color and imagery, and then determine the shape and material. With the simple checklist in mind, you, along with the help of a sign professional, shouldn't have any trouble getting to work on your signage concept. The resulting creation should be signs that check off all of your criteria while portraying a final cohesive message that's engaging. Once your signage is conceptualized, it's important to check it against a number of criteria before having it fabricated or printed. Is the key messaging or value proposition clear? Is the sign pleasing to the eye? Will it stand out in its final application? Is the branding consistent with your business? And is it clean, well organized in its presentation? If your signage concept checks all of these boxes, then it's time to go fabricate your sign. So one of the things to consider is defining the message. The message is going to be determined by the application of that particular sign. So signs in and of itself as a medium may be powerful, but without conveying the proper message, it may fall short of its true potential. Without a clear, concise message, your signage won't be interpreted as anything other than a sign. It's like having a toolbox with no tools in it. So depending on your signage application, the message you choose to portray could take a number of different forms. It may be a call to action, a brand call out, or just as well, it might be a simple wayfinding message. Let's take a look at a few signage applications and the messages that lend themselves to each. So an overhead storefront sign, which is going to kind of brand your business when people enter. This is almost always going to be a simple and straightforward thing. Your business, its logo, and nothing more. There's nothing convoluted about it. Another consideration would be storefront signage, whether it's window or displayed out in front. This type of signage needs to be create some kind of an appeal or an offer or a call to action. These are the 50% off signs in your window, or check out our new line of shoes. And then pieces of signage common in retail like this are also the same thing for business, service-oriented businesses. Another common use of signs would be trade show signage. And in that consideration, when you're literally surrounded by many of your competitors, your signage needs to be focused on your brand messaging, and it also needs to stand out. These signs are in a few words, but I mean, it should only be using a few words, but strong in their imagery and branding. Using your colors, logos, and slogans liberally will grab the attention, and that'll help you reel people into your booth or your table. And then one other final one that we can look at is point of purchase signage. This type of signage is meant to do one thing, and that is close the sale with whoever your clients are. It'll be a simple and straightforward message with a single value proposition that reinforces a call to action, reaffirming a customer's decision to purchase. So another key component of consignage is the placement. It needs to be visible. Proximity of who's going to be looking at it needs to be considered, and what the opportunity is for people to see it. So nothing can ruin a quality piece of signage quicker than poor placement. If your sign can't be seen or is positioned in an area where its message isn't coming across, its effectiveness becomes greatly diminished or moot. Great signage placement revolves around a few key factors to consider. As a rule of thumb, your signage should be visible for about 10 feet for every inch of scale. So if you have a sign with letters that are 12 inches tall, it should be placed to be seen completely from about 120 feet away. And then this depends entirely on your building clearance, obstructions, and more for each application is going to be unique, and all the factors need to be considered. In applications like trade shows and strip malls, your signage is going to be cozied up near other messaging. The key to effective signage in these situations is to control proximity. So in a strip mall, you want to leave approximately 8 feet on either side of your sign so it's highly visible for passersby. At a trade show, vertical banners to utilize available upward space instead of clashing with nearby booth signage is the way to go. The more distant your proximity, the more room your sign has to shine. The best place to put your signage is where most eyes will see it or where it's most applicable. If you've got sale signage, put it near the sale items or right out in front where general customers can see it. Likewise, if you're trying to attract customers to your business storefront and it's set back off the road, opting for some roadside signage, such as an A-frame or a sign that's on the road, might be a better option than storefront signage. Signage needs to be seen in order to be effective. Placement is often where your businesses run into most trouble with their signage. And in many cases, it's a smart idea to have a qualified signage professional to take care of placement and mounting for larger signs, as the mounting and installation can also get a little complicated. There are many reasons why placement is crucial, and numbers don't lie. In a recent survey of first-time customers of businesses that installed new exterior signs, when asked, "How did you learn about us?" 46% said it was an on-premise sign. Did you know that did you know that based on the US Census, an average of nearly 19% of Americans relocate every year? What that means is that businesses are constantly in a need to continue to attract new customers. On average, 85% of business clients live within 5 to 10 miles of that business. A good visible sign is the best tool to attract new customers and grab attention for your business. Another consideration when putting a sign together is the color. Even the best message is easily lost to onlookers when a custom sign isn't properly designed. The dynamic of colors, shapes, imagery, and material and other variables need to be balanced. If not, attention will shift between these variables and diminish the power and the message of your sign. Choose colors that are complementary to your branding, yet work together in harmony. Avoid swaths of color that are too strenuous to the eye or too dull to stand out. And when in doubt, white and gray are smart fillers for space that can break up vivid colors. It's also important to consider color psychology when creating signage. Knowing how your colors may be perceived by those viewing your sign can play into the messaging you choose to deliver. More than just knowing different colors and their meanings, it's also important to know how they play together, and that will help you create a piece of signage that backs up the message it's conveying. I'll share this also later so you can see a lot of the psychology and how a lot of the colors will work together when you integrate them. Another important consideration with your signage is imagery. The golden rule for signage imagery is to keep it as simple as possible. Don't try to use complex images or numerous visuals to boost your sign's appeal. Instead, use minimalism to accentuate the underlying purpose of your sign. If you're creating a sign meant to boost your brand recognition, use your logo. If the sign is meant to sell, focus on the product or the price. Images can be a powerful tool in creating marketing collateral, but they need to be kept simple when it comes to signage. Make sure they come in second to the ultimate message you're trying to portray. And this slide has some excellent examples of really good usage of imagery. For the first image on the left, what that is, that's a window graphic on the outside of a chiropractor's office. So the outdoor image conveys a healthy and physical activity, and that's what the ultimate end of that chiropractic service is trying to convey. So this conveys an important message, it's eye-catching, and it gets the potential client in the right frame of mind. The next slide over with the ouch is really eye-catching, and this image is an excellent example of a provocative image that will then bring attention to the business and the problem that it's trying to solve. So pretty much anyone that was driving by this sign would certainly notice it. Other excellent usage of imagery is in informational signage. So if you look at the sign on the bottom right corner, the icons really help to accentuate the public health messaging that is on that sign. And then one final slide we have here is basic room signage. Room signage can be one of the most boring and pedestrian things. However, you can really easily incorporate colors and branding to not only dress up the space, but again, it'll help build your brand and build memory into clients and other people you're trying to build that brand with. And then one final consideration of signage is the shape. Shapes add personality to the signage, and depending on where you're placing it or what the scope of the messaging is to be conveyed, the shape of your sign has virtually limitless possibilities. Shape can even be leveraged into your brand. So two brands that I'm sure everyone is familiar with are Target, the bullseye, and the golden arches of McDonald's. Those are now iconic things that are very simple illustrations of how emphasizing the shape of your sign can help become not only part of the messaging, but also a core component of your brand as they stand out and add personality. And then once you've got all these components together, you can't move forward without first choosing a material. So there's a number of questions that you really want to ask yourself and your sign partner when you're looking at putting a sign together. Now, one of the most important considerations is whether or not the sign is going to be inside or outside. What is the intended use of the sign? Is it temporary or permanent? And if it's permanent, what does that mean? How long is it going to be used? And same thing, what is the time frame for that temporary usage? Is it going to be going on post? Is it going to be standing by itself? Is it going to be mounted to a building? Those are all important considerations when also then figuring out what the appropriate material is. And then materials also go a long way to dictating what your budget will be. So though it might not make much of an impression on your customers, ultimately the material which you create your sign will have an impact on the overall application. Vinyl banners will hold up to the outdoor elements in the same way that polycarbonate signage will help add strength to long-term indoor applications. The material can also be dictated by the application. If you don't use appropriate materials, then your sign might not last and be suitable for the intended purpose. So let's look now at some applications and materials for indoor signage. Some of the most common indoor signage usage are for trade shows, for countertop displays, for wayfinding, which can also be ADA compliant, reception areas, easel signage, and anywhere where weather is not going to be in factor and the sign is in a controlled environment. There are many usage for signs indoors, and the fact that they're going to be used indoors when looked at in combination with what their use and purpose is will help determine what appropriate materials to use are. The available substrates and materials are really numerous, and it can be overwhelming to look at all of the options. That is why it's important to be able to define the parameters of your sign and work with a reliable sign professional who can then help you decide on materials that are both cost-effective and suitable for what your needs are. And just looking at some of the slides here, these materials are all appropriate for indoor use. The slide on top with the room signage, that's basically acrylic, but it's got some nice aluminum accents. The slide to the right shows a trade show display, and that's a combination of vinyl banners. There's some fabric banners in there. There's also table throws. The literature display is using a PVC sign, and all those materials are appropriate for indoor usage. Also, the bottom right corner, that's a common usage, both coming into exhibits, events, or even regular businesses and service-oriented businesses having an easel display. That's something where you can use a foam core or an ultra board. And then lastly, the sign with the semaphore in the middle there, that's actually a stainless steel application. So in this case, this is fabricated specifically for indoor use, where if we were using it for outdoor use, we would use the same materials, but give it a special application that would make it stand up to the elements. And then we can look at some material considerations for outdoor. Now, when we're talking about outdoor, what does that mean? It means signage that is weather-resistant material, and it's going to be made to last and withstand harsh conditions. Such applications can include parking signs, post signs, building identification signs, and political and real estate. Just like indoors, there are a myriad of uses for signs outdoors, and the materials that are used on signs outside, in some cases, can be the same as those used for indoor signage, but often the materials need to be more robust and of a different specification. Outdoor signs need to be able to stand up to elements such as sun, wind, temperature, and precipitation, just to name a few things. Questions to ask might be, will the sign be near salt water? Will it be in direct sunlight? Is it very windy where the sign is going to be placed? All important factors that go into selecting the appropriate substrates. And just like indoor signs, the options are rather plentiful. So make sure that you work with a trusted professional so that the sign you spend your hard-earned money on works for its intended purpose and it lasts. And then the last consideration here that ties everything together is budget. Budget is obviously an important factor in any investment that you make for your business. And if you cannot afford the sign that you would like to install, then it really doesn't matter how great it will look or how great it will function. That said, don't lose faith. There are signs for every budget, and there are also other considerations. So take a look at a good starting point would be to figure out that what you would like to do with your signage and think of every conceivable sign that you would like to have. Once you do that, come up with a priority order for those signs that you would like. It is also a good idea to have a strategy for what you are looking to do with your signage. Did you want to install a whole bunch of signage items all at once, or do you want to work on a timeline, adding a little bit as you go? Maybe you want to have a beautiful illuminated sign on your storefront, but you really need a few good months of business before you can afford to have that installed. Well, maybe putting up an inexpensive banner to start would work out, and then when you can afford it, you can go for that permanent higher end solution. Also, don't be afraid to work with a sign professional and go through all of your thoughts that you're having on this subject. Very often, if you let them know that you plan on doing X, Y, and Z over the next few months, then you can also save some money, as opposed to simply purchasing one sign solution and then 6 months later exploring your next signage need. Also don't be afraid to price out a number of different options to see what you can afford. So specifically, if we look at this slide here, obviously Wendy's is a national brand, but these slides can exemplify where you can start out with a basic banner, and then as time goes on and you have more money to spend on your signage and branding, you can invest in higher end signs, such as an illuminated sign. Also, don't be afraid to have multiple options priced out for that same purpose, so that then it allows you to choose the selection that works best for you at this time. That also goes for looking at several options for one sign, as well as to pricing out what it would cost for you to produce individual signs over time versus doing them all at once. Because you might get very different pricing. Say you figure you want to do 6 different types of signs. The cost that you'll have will probably be significantly less if you do them all at the same time, as opposed to doing them one-off, say once a month for over a 6-month period. It's also important to remember that signs, while they are a one-time spend, they're there permanently, especially if it's a permanent installation, and they are marketing tools that keep giving back. Once a sign is created and installed, it's there every day. Unlike your spend on commercials, direct mail pieces, social media, ads, or any other marketing tool, the sign is not a one-time tool. It's an everyday, always there marketing tool that you can rely on. So the other thing that we'd like to cover now is there's basically 2 main buckets of signs that come into they'd be considered printed signs or fabricated signs. Printed signs, regardless of the size or industry of your company, large format printing is a great way to maximize your advertising dollars, take your messaging further. Large format printing is especially valuable for small business owners looking for unique ways to disseminate their branded messaging. The possible applications of large format printing are virtually limitless. There's no shortage of creative ways to implement large format printing for your marketing needs. And the type of large format printing you invest in should ultimately depend on your business and your marketing strategy. On the next slide, we'll cover some of the most popular large format printing solutions that are applied to signage. Fabricated signs, on the other hand, are the second type of signs we'll cover here. And generally, any fabricated sign is going to be for a permanent application, or at the very least, one that will be used over and over and have long-term viability. Fabricated signs are for when you're ready to take your signage needs to the next level, While they tend to be more expensive than printed signs or graphics, these types of signs really stand out, and they often involve shapes, dimension, and rich and engaging materials. So looking at some common usage for large format printing, one that I'm sure everyone is familiar with is banners. Banners can be just straight vinyl or mesh banners, and both are useful for indoor and outdoor applications. Vinyl and mesh banners are excellent tools that you can use to clearly and effectively communicate your branded messaging. And they're also something that's very economical when you're starting out a business that you can use initially and then grow into a more permanent and richer, more engaging solution. Then there's wall and floor graphics. Branding your space is a genius marketing move that will immerse both customers and employees in your company's messaging. Wall and floor graphics can help you disseminate your imagery and messaging with ease. Another consideration for graphics and signage usage, vehicle wraps. Branded vehicle wraps are exceedingly effective marketing tool as your delivery vans or your service vans or your cars are going around town, and it's essentially a moving billboard. There's also numerous levels that you can use when talking about vehicle wraps. Full wraps can tend to be expensive, but you can just as easily use spot graphics on the sides of your vehicles, either with adhesive vinyls or even with magnets. Those are a much more affordable starting point, and then you can grow into full wraps. Other considerations for large format printing are just basic signs such as posters, and they can be used indoors and outdoors. It's a great way to disseminate your branded messaging while also providing customers and employees with invaluable information. Branded directional signs, for instance, are universally useful. And then the last use of large format we'll take a look at is window graphics. Window graphics can go a long way toward helping your brand meet marketing goals, and they're really versatile tools to enhance exterior aesthetic of your space. Instead of having, just some blank, dark-looking windows on the outside of your business, you can use window perf, which allows the light to come in from the outside. Yet, when someone is looking at the outside of your building, all they see is your message. But from the inside, you see the outside, and it's bright and sunlit. So that's a great tool for enhancing your business messaging. Now, the other bucket of signs we'll talk about is fabricated signs. Fabricated signs are often the centerpiece for branding a business. The illuminated storefront sign or the dimensional logo on the wall behind the receptionist when you enter an office make a statement and capture people's attention. Dimensional letters can be created out of a wide range of materials, including acrylic, aluminum, steel, wood, and numerous other substrates. Lighting elements can often be introduced, such as LEDs and spotlighting, in creative and eye-catching ways. Materials can also often be combined to add a combination of textures, dimensions, and appearances, and some fabricated signs become almost like art projects, often only limited by the imagination. Installation of fabricated signs generally is also more involved, so working with someone who knows what they're doing is especially important with this type of sign, as the last thing you'd want to do is have a beautiful fabricated sign and then have it damaged upon the installation. So in the slide here, we can look at a couple of things that show excellent use of texture and dimension. That Bobby Q sign on the bottom right, that actually introduces a number of different elements and really ties them together nicely. So what that is, it's a 1-inch thick birch board that was direct printed with that background. Then the black on there is 1/2-inch die cut PVC that's applied to the backer board. And then that flame is actually acrylic that's printed on both sides to give it some dimension, and then that's fabricated onto there. So it gives it really nice texture and real eye-catching appeal. And then again, also looking at the CX loyalty that we discussed earlier, you have some really nice textures in there with dimensional letters that are both side and facelit. And then the branding there is carried across with custom vinyl that's matched to the brand guidelines of CX loyalty. And then the backing material is subway tile that gives it a really eye-catching appearance, and it makes it really memorable. So one last thing that I wanted to cover before we get into a Q&A is signs during COVID, which is really an excellent way and on point to look at what's going on in our world right now. A lot of the usage for signage during COVID include important messaging with employees, vendors, and customers. Often the messaging is required by state and local governments. Also, you don't want to make a bad impression. Initially, when COVID came around, a lot of people were just as a stopgap measure with putting handwritten messaging up in their windows or on their doors or on their walls. While, for a week that's okay, it starts to actually send a bad message about your brand and the quality of what you're doing. So instead of having a negative impact, you want to use it as a positive opportunity for marketing and branding. So social distance signage is essential for keeping customers safe within your businesses right now, but it doesn't have to be boring. And in fact, it's an opportunity to put your brand, your products or services, and your message in front and center while still reinforcing healthy behaviors. Consider these 4 ways to maximize your marketing with social distancing signage right now. You can align your branding so that everyone knows the drill with social distancing in public. Signs are mainly reminders for customers to follow those practices in your building. Yet you can tell the story of your business by changing your social distancing signage to match your branding and decor. You can use your brand's logo, your colors, fonts, and imagery to make signs unique to your business. Another thing that you can do right now is using social distancing and COVID signage to actually advertise your products. Social distancing signage isn't just for showing off your logo. It can also be helped to promote what your business has to offer. Try product messages and images on your signs. For example, if you run a burger restaurant, you can redesign your floor graphics to have a different delicious looking burger every 6 feet. This clever advertising strategy also provides opportunities for cross-selling and upselling, and then particularly when it's used where customers will be waiting in line. Another consideration with COVID signage is to really just get creative. Use social distancing signage doesn't need to have a standard look for every business. Use this opportunity to really wow your customers by mixing it up and being creative with your strategy. Signage can portray holidays, major events, industry information. For example, gyms might want to include a quick health fact for every graphic. The more creative you are with your signs, the more memorable your client's visit is going to be, and the more your customers will leave having a positive impression of your brand and your business. Plus, creative signs are more likely to grab people's attention and have them adhere to the message that you're trying to get, the public safety messages you're trying to get them to stick with. And then one last consideration is that you can use these signs to actually generate leads. Social distancing signage doesn't only have to be there to enforce healthy behaviors inside your business. It can also be used as a powerful lead generation tool that encourages customers to engage with you long after they've left your building. By adding a QR code on a sign, a customer can visit a website where they can then sign up for a loyalty program, subscribe to your emails, download your app, or receive a discount code. These lead generation tactics not only draw customers' attention to your signs, but they also add an incentive for them. And in the end, this helps you to build a long-term relationship with your clients. Creative and strategic signage works for your brand, and social distancing signage doesn't have to be generic. Turn it into a unique opportunity to brand and market your business. And that pretty much will cover what I'm going to go over today, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have, as we just covered a lot of material.
That's great. Thanks, Dave. There, indeed, you covered a lot of ground there, and I'm sure there will be a number of questions, and we do have lots of time for them. So just as a reminder, if you would like to submit a question, just please open your chat box by hovering on the bottom of your screen, and you can just type your question in there, and we'll take as many as we can up until the top of the hour. So we do have a few questions here already, and so I'll just start. First one is, if you want to run an outdoor short-term sale sign, what's the most economical way to print that?
So I would say there's a couple of considerations, and one would be the location of your business and what the opportunity is to display that sale sign to your potential clients. So for instance, if you have a real street front frontage with lots of windows, maybe putting up a window graphic would be a great way to do that, because they're very easy to do temporarily. They're not expensive. One other consideration would be to get something like an A-frame or a Windmaster display where you can continuously change out the graphics. Generally, they're in the graphics that get put in there are like 24 to 36 is a very common size. What that does is it gives you a two-sided opportunity to catch people's attention when they're coming to your business on either side. You can slot in and change out graphics. And on times when you don't have a sale running, you can actually just put in simple branding there, and you can still use that as a tool to attract people's attention to your storefront.
Oh, great, excellent. Um, we have a question from Eva. If an office has two different services, what would you recommend for a sign there?
Well, again, I think there's considerations like, are those services come under the banner of one brand? Are they branded independently? So putting multiple brands on one sign, I think gets a little tricky, but it's easy to have a singular brand, and then there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. If you're talking about permanent signage, I think what you want to do is just highlight the brand. But then with other types of signage like window signage or A-frames like we were talking about, or if it's a service oriented, maybe it's in an office and you'd have an easel out front, you can just use bulleted service call outs on there. Or you can use, and again, this all depends on the application and the space you have for it. Like that slide we covered earlier on, where there was a window graphic for the chiropractor and they used imagery to capture the attention. Maybe you use two different images that are very descriptive and encapsulate what those different services are and incorporate those into a sign together. That's why it's also important to, if you have some ideas or you have some solutions you're looking to solve, don't be afraid to call a professional. I work with clients all the time and we're really consultative the way we work. We don't charge someone to talk to us and to bounce around some ideas. That's how you build good relationships. So leverage the resources that are out there for you and talk to a professional, and I think you'll come to a good solution.
Okay, that's great. We've got one here on inks and media, and the question is, what kinds of inks and media do you have to use for digital signage to go outdoors?
So, well, the first consideration is the media itself. So anything that you're going to be using outside that's going to be exposed to the elements, needs to be obviously waterproof, because you can't control precipitation. And really depending on the application where it's going to go would determine what the rigidity of it needs to be. Like a banner is a great, usage, but the considerations would be, are you attaching that banner to the side of a building? In that case, you really don't have to worry about wind. But if you're putting a pole banner up, or maybe you're stretching it across the street, then wind and the durability of that sign is going to take on another consideration. Also, you want materials, especially if it's a permanent outdoor application, materials that are going to be really durable. So using aluminum or using steel, or depending on what you're using. Depending on what the application is, are important considerations. If it's a temporary application, but you just want it to stand up, then vinyl banners are excellent. Also, coroplast, that's the most common material used in lawn signs. That stuff is super durable, really stands up to the elements, and has multiple applications. When it comes to the inks that you're going to use on that, different substrates receive inks differently. So generally the ones that you're going to use are either UV inks or latex inks. Both work for outdoor applications. But another consideration for when you're using something outdoors would also be to consider using a lamination, which will then protect the printed surface underneath your laminated imagery or messaging.
That's great. Lots of good advice there. It's a question from Steve here on. He didn't talk much about it in the presentation about billboards. Do you have any comments or advice on using those?
Yeah, sure. So billboards, again, there's a lot of different kinds of billboards. One, you could be working with a company that has frontage on highways. That would be something like Outdoors or Lamar. And what I would say for billboards generally going to be seen as someone is passing by very quickly. And this kind of rule of thumb works well with lawn signs as well. Do not make it complicated. Do not put too much on there for someone to read. An eye-catching image and a really simple message that then points them back to your website or wherever the main point of contact that you're looking for is really the way to go. If you have your own property and you're looking to put up a billboard maybe on the side of your building, there's some really good solutions for that, especially using like banner frames, where you can put up a permanent framework that makes, but is really easy to change out the vinyl banners on an ongoing basis. So it's really a cost-effective way to essentially have permanent signage, yet make it so that you can change it out based on whatever your sales cycle is, or whatever the season is, or whatever your messaging is.
Okay, great. Yeah, good advice. Question here on outdoor signs. Are there laws about stringing a sign across a sidewalk or a street? And a related question, what's a wind walker?
So when it comes to what you can and can't put up outside of your business and stringing across the street, every municipality is different. What might require a permit in one town does not require a permit in another town. What may be completely allowed in one town may not be allowed in another town. So the consideration there is, one, to research on your own what the sign allowances and requirements and permitting requirements are in the locations you're trying to put a sign up, or again, work with a local sign professional that would have that knowledge and be able to help you walk through that process. Like we're currently working on numerous sign projects and have permitting going on in several different towns, and the process in each town is totally different. So there's no real hard and fast answer to that. It really depends on the sign, the material, the location, and the municipality that you're in. And a wind walker, I'm not sure if that's referring to one of the things I mentioned, which was a Windmaster.
Yeah, I think yeah, maybe that's what it was, but you had mentioned it before.
Yeah, so Windmaster is similar to an A-frame, but what it is, it's a solid base that you can add water or sand to weight it down so it won't blow away. And instead of kind of like an A-frame, it's just one singular facade that you can put graphics on either side, but where at the attachment point to the base, there are heavy-duty springs. So what happens is it just kind of moves with the wind, so it will never get like torn up or beaten up. It's very, it's very adaptable to the weather conditions.
Yeah, that's great. Just a reminder, we have lots of time for questions. So if you do have a question, please take advantage of the chat box, and we'd be glad to go back to any of the material that Dave covered if you have a question on that. And also remember that the session will be recorded and you'll be able to access it from our website. Dave, I've a question as well, that with respect to fabrication, do you see a big use of 3D printing when you're fabricating signs right now? You didn't really touch on that, but I'm just curious because it's becoming more popular.
Yeah, not really yet, because a lot of the fabricated signs are a lot of it involves custom colors. So we need to make sure the materials are receptive to the coloring. And also a lot of the fabricated signs that we do are for outdoor use. So the materials really need to be carefully spec'd to stand up to that. In a lot of cases, you are attaching one substrate to another substrate. So you need to make sure that those work well together. We do use some dimensional signs inside. But again, we use, and it's a similar process to what 3D printing would be, but we can custom die cut. And we, like, for instance, we have a flatbed routing table where we can essentially take a substrate, put in, whether a die line into it, and it can do multi-level die cutting on there. So we can create essentially a 3D image ourselves as well from a flat substrate. And then that, not only do you have that 3D fabrication, but you also have a material that's appropriate and perfectly fabricated for its intended use.
Okay, great. A follow-up question on COVID, and you talked about signs during COVID, and we find that at SCORE, a lot of our clients are having to do sales and marketing presentations remotely via Zoom or other platforms. And do you have any advice on kind of background signage and things to take advantage of that, that maybe?
Yeah, so what I would say is, if branding your presentation, your virtual presentations, is a good thing to do. You know, if anyone can see my image now, we've got some cut vinyl, adhesive vinyl lettering on our walls all around. So I have my camera positioned so that the AlphaGraphics branding, you know, is shown off behind me. But what we've done a lot of is backdrops for people that are doing a lot of virtual networking or presentations. You can set that up behind any desk, behind any chair, incorporate your brand, and they're very easy to break down and to move around. You can also use retractable banner stands as an excellent tool for branding that way. And then one of the other things we've been doing with branding too is it gets into a different kind of service area, but anything you can do with virtual presentations to engage your audience and keep them engaged, because you just can't keep the attention span of people like you can when you're interacting with them in person. So we've been doing some things with a program we called AG Box, where we do custom branded boxes, and then people can incorporate any kind of materials that they need, swag, snacks, anything to keep people engaged throughout the process. Anything you can do is a great, you know, is a really good thing that will help your sales, help your marketing, or help your training, whatever that event is for.
Okay. We just have a follow-up question on this topic from Steve. Can you explain exactly what a backdrop is that's the question?
Yeah, so a backdrop, in the way I'm referring to it, is essentially the ones that I would generally recommend for this is like they're about 8 feet high. Basically, any kit would come with a left post and a right post that are expandable vertically, and then a post that would go at the top and the bottom. And what we would do is we would print and then fabricate a fabric graphic with pole pockets top and bottom. And then you could easily set that up and place it right behind you. Not only is it an excellent tool for virtual events for branding behind you, but it's something that's commonly used as photo backdrops at live events where, you know, you see people standing with logos behind them. That's basically what I'm referring to by a backdrop. People will commonly use that as a backdrop at press conferences, also at trade shows. They're very commonly used.
Okay, that's great. Question from Julie. I'm in the landscape business, and in your experience, what has been the most effective signage to use? How effective is the lawn sign to create awareness?
So if you're talking about, and maybe you can elaborate a little more, are you trying to bring attention to a project that you're working on, and then also have people see that, hey, we're working on this great project, why don't you reach out to us for projects that you're looking to do? Or are you talking about more of a permanent solution at your headquarters? And another great thing with landscaping signage and really any of the service industries where you have trucks or vans out on the road, like I mentioned earlier, using your vehicles as moving billboards is an ideal solution. You know, if you have your team working on a beautiful home and putting together a beautiful landscaping display, and your truck is sitting in front of that, you know, you should have your brand and your services on your truck so that everybody goes by that needs that service. That's gonna trip something in their memory, and then hopefully they'll reach out to you if they need that service. But lawn signs are an excellent tool. They're durable, and you can continue to reuse them and move them from one location to another. As I mentioned earlier with lawn signs, keep it as simple as possible. Do not put a ton of information on there. You know, make it your recognizable brand and your contact information. We work with so many people that try and put a lot of information on a lawn sign. And as I'm sure you're all aware, there's no way you're reading 10 lines of type as you're driving by a sign at 30 miles an hour. You just want to catch someone's eye.
Just a follow-up on that. There's likely a wide range of, if you like, laws about lawn signs. You know, how long can they be out there? You know, when do you have to collect them? What have you run into there that should people watch if they're putting out lawn signs, maybe?
So again, that is completely based on the town that you're in. Also, a lot of towns and states will have different laws, especially when it comes to political signs, where they're allowed within a certain time frame and time range within an election, and then they need to be cleaned up. As far as businesses go, you really need to know, the best thing to do would be to kind of canvass the areas that you're looking to put your lawn signs in, pick out would be the ideal locations, and then kind of see with your town if those are allowable locations, because high traffic areas for lawn signs are ideally what you want to use. So areas where you're getting on and off a highway, or where major roadways come together. But again, thinking about, learning what the allowances are within the town that you're looking to use them in is the key for that. And there's no hard and fast answer because every town is different.
Okay, that's great. A question on we had come in on retractable branding stands.
Banner stands.
Yeah, can you give the audience a rough idea of price?
Sure. So, retractable banner stands are a great tool. They fold down to nothing. They generally come with a carry case, and you can take them with you wherever you go. The price range is generally anywhere from about $200 up to $400 or $500. A really basic banner stand is usually the basic one that we use. The hardware is like 33 inches wide and expands up to 81 inches high. I generally don't recommend our clients getting the very, very base one. Like one step up, the quality of the material, the attractiveness, and also the ease of use is so much exponentially better. So the difference between spending $200 and $250 gives you a much better and more attractive solution. And then as you get the more expensive ones, banner stands can get, we do some that are 4 feet wide, some that are 5 feet wide, some that are with different materials that are a little more expensive, but you can get into banner stands very easily for, a few $100s.
Okay, that's great. We don't seem to have any more questions, so I think we'll draw the line here. And just as a reminder to people, the webinar has been recorded, and materials are available within the next couple of days on the fairfieldcounty.score.org website. And you can certainly listen to this at your leisure, and you can stop it at any point in time in the presentation if you want to look at some of the slides in more detail. Our next live webinar will be on Friday at noon, and the topic is Maintain Leadership Presence, Own the Room, with Steve Gardner presenting. And again, if you would like free counseling, Dave, if I could ask you to move the slide.
Sure.
You can click on the link that you see on the screen there, or you could go to our website and click on the Request a Mentor. And if I could also ask people to please fill out your evaluations. They help us with future webinars. And on behalf of everyone who attended today, thank you for attending our live webinar, and special thanks to Dave Stowe for presenting today. Stay well, everyone, and have a great day.
Yep, thank you.